And the nice thing about this giveaway is everybody wins something.
We are so happy to be joined today by Sharon Short. Her new novel is coming out very soon, Trouble Island.
Very excited to have this in our hands. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
Those of you who've been watching us for a while or listening, we post photos of all of our guests. And Sharon has been our guest in the past under a different name, Jess
Yes,
Montgomery.
Montgomery.
Yes.
Yes.
But she's here today as Sharon Short to talk about Trouble Island. Sharon, would you mind telling us a bit about this new book?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about it. So it's my standalone um, suspense debut. That's the change back to the name, my actual name, Sharon Short. And it's set in 1933 on an island, surprise, surprise, given the title, in the middle of Lake Erie. And Lake Erie was a very active area for bootlegging. Lots of gangsters used the dots of land in that lake to run whiskey from Canada. And so when I found out about this one particular island that was owned by a gangster on which he had a casino and a restaurant and lodging for well-heeled guests so he could curry favor with them. That I learned about this island like probably 25 years ago or so. And it's just stuck in my head. And then I pulled in my husband's great aunt who killed her husband basically in self-defense. He had abused her. They couldn't have children. She'd adopted a pet monkey. And he one day threw the monkey across the room, and uh, that was enough for Great Aunt Ruth. So she shot him dead. The monkey ended up being just fine, by the way. I think
Good.
that's important to note. So I thought, why not combine these two? So this is really the story of a woman on the lam who was married to a low level gangster. She ends up on this island that's owned by another gangster's wife, um, estranged wife. And she's trying to figure out how she can get away from that family, get away from the island, and restart her life when the gangster and a snowstorm shows up on the island and locks everybody down on this island. And thus, of course, trouble ensues. That's why I called it Trouble Island. The actual island in real life is called Middle Island, and I thought that is not quite compelling enough. So it's a story about forgiving yourself for your past mistakes and trying to reconcile your past haunts and then finding a future, like giving yourself the freedom to hopefully find a future and move on. So that's really what the story is all about. I'm very excited about it.
Oh, it sounds really good. I mean, I love an island mystery suspense story, and to put a snowstorm on top of it, that's like the
Mhm.
cherry on top for me. Love a good snowstorm.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it's fun. And we usually think of islands as warm and balmy places. So it was also fun to play with that trope.
Yeah. Well, I started reading it and the opening scene is has to do with swimming and frigid cold temperatures. So it
Yes.
pulls you right in and makes you quite chilly and want a warm beverage as you're reading.
I've had a couple early readers say, "I really needed a blanket and a cup of, like, tea or cocoa to read this
Yeah.
book," which I think is wonderful. Good. I made the setting come to life. I love that.
That's awesome. Well, and we're here on Friday Reads. So, I don't know what order we wanna go in. We thought we'd each share a book. Um, should we go first and let Sharon bring it home? What do you think?
Sure. Does that sound good to you,
Sure.
Sharon? Sure.
That
Okay.
sounds great.
I'll go first. So the book that I have, we just got in Book Cougars headquarters from Grove Press. Thank you to them. It's called Night Side of the River: Ghost Stories by the author Jeanette Winterson. I'm Sharon. This year, I'm doing a short story project where I read one short story every Monday. So when
Great.
I heard about this book, I really wanted to get a copy because she's an author that's been on my radar for years. She's a very well-known English writer, and I've never read her. So I'm looking forward to starting it. When I read a little bit about it, it suggests that she's been having her own interactions with ghosts herself, which is what drew her to focusing on ghost stories. And there are 13 stories in this collection. And I just thought I'd read where it said, lifting the veil between the living and the dead, Winterson spirits us away to a haunted estate that ensnares a nomadic young couple in its own dark past, a staged, immersive tour gone awry, a West Village seance that threatens the bounds between AI and reality, and a vacation
Ooh.
home in the metaverse where a widow visits an improved version of her deceased husband.
Oh,
Oh my
That one
gosh, this
sounds
sounds so good.
compelling, right?
that does.
And they're gloriously gothic and unnervingly contemporary. So
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna have a hard time choosing which one to start with, but I'll figure it out.
Oh, wow. I'm also reading a gothic-y story. This is one I've read before, Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. This is a new cover by Virago. This novel came out in 2002. And it won a bunch of international awards for being mystery novel, crime fiction, and I love it. It is a big chunkster, as you can see. So I read it back when it, first came out, really loved it. I can tell a story about something in the novel. I can't say what it is because Michael Kindness, our friend, he's a Random House rep and former host of Books on the Nightstand, said, when people say a book has this, it is a big spoiler. So don't even say it. But I can tell you, when my wife and I were on vacation, we were sitting there in the beach house having a lovely evening reading, and she's reading away. And all of a sudden, she throws the book across the room. It hits the wall and splats on the floor. And I was like, what? Like, she's the least violent person I know. So for her to do that, I just looked at her. I was stunned. I was like, what's going on? And she got out of bed and huffed over and picked up the book. She's like, I can't believe what just happened. And then she sat down and commenced to reading. So when I read the book,
I
I didn't exactly throw it across the room. Um, but I can't wait to dig in again because it's been a long time since I read it. And I love Sarah Waters' earlier novels because they're set in Victorian period and they have that kind of gothic-y feel. They're lesbian centric in some ways. Her other book, Tipping the Velvet, definitely is. So if you're looking for a good Victorian romp with modern sensibility and beautiful writing that is easy to read, I totally recommend Fingersmith.
but be
Okay.
careful because you might throw it across the room.
Yeah, just make sure you don't hit any monkeys or anything.
That's right. Or the cats. Yeah.
Yes.
So I am late to the party on this one, but this is what I'm reading right now, Gunkel, by Stephen Rowley. And I decided to, well, I was at the Writer's Digest annual conference, and like 2, 3 weeks ago, and he was the keynoter and gave such a lovely talk. And I knew who he was, and I knew about his book and his other books too, but I hadn't read him yet. So I found him incredibly charming. So I picked up the book and I've started it. I'm not too far into it. Um, but it's the balm that my soul needs right now. It's super joyful. It's funny, but not slapstick funny. It's like wise, witty funny, and very, very heartfelt. A lot of love, a lot of warmth in it. I'll give you the description. Patrick O'Hara is a bit out of his league. Patrick, or gay uncle Patrick, Gup for short, has always loved his niece, Macy, and nephew Grant. That is, he loves spending time with them when they come out to Palm Springs for week-long visits or when he heads home to Connecticut for the holidays. So when tragedy strikes and Patrick finds himself suddenly taking on the role of primary guardian, he is honestly overwhelmed. And he is overwhelmed, but in this delightful way. And his niece and nephew, the characters are just a lot of fun. They're kids who are too smart and but in a good way. So I'm enjoying it. It's very good. I can't wait to finish it and then send Mr. Raleigh a note that tells him how great it is.
Nice.
When he spoke, does he talk about, is that based on the fact that he really is an uncle and he has nieces and nephews?
Yeah, he pulls in, it's not his exact experience, of course, but he pulls on those relationships and that emotionality to bring it to life. And so it's quasi autobiographical in that way. But he talked a lot about the writing journey and how interesting it can be and how fraught it can be, and was just really very inspiring. So
Nice.
yeah,
Wonderful.
Yeah, I read that one earlier this year too, Sharon. So you're not the only one who's late to the party. And I
okay,
think I avoided it because it sounded a little saccharine, you know. I didn't
right,
I didn't find that at all. I thought, like you just
right.
said, it's funny and it's sweet and it's smart. So I'm glad you found the perfect book for the right time.
I think I have, and I avoided it for the same reason that you just said. I thought, I don't know. I feel like uplifting stories, but I was fearful it would be a little too, like you say, saccharine, and it's
Mhm.
not. It's just the right blend of everything. So
Yeah,
And I know he
wonderful.
has another one out now with the Guncle Abroad. So
Yeah,
if you enjoy
yes,
Guncle, you can keep on with the character, which is fun, always fun.
yeah.
yes, that will be fun.
So we've mentioned that Sharon has written a mystery series under a different name, and you also write a column for Writer's Digest.
I do. Yes,
Yeah,
as Sharon Short.
and Sharon Short. Yeah. So can you
Yeah.
just talk about that a little bit? What the focus of your article is? Your column, I should say.
Sure, sure. It's called Level Up Your Writing Life, and it comes out with it's in every issue of Writer's Digest, which I still find I'm in, let's see, I think the fifth year of doing this. And I
Wow.
still find it just absolutely amazing that I'm a regular Writer's Digest columnist because I really did learn most of my craft, obviously from practice and reading. You have to read if you're going to be a writer. But in terms of like studying the craft, a lot of it was through Writer's Digest and two conferences I went to. I went to a Mystery Writers of America conference in the Midwest, like again, probably 25 years ago, and Antioch Writers Workshop, which I used to be the director of. But before that, I attended and got a lot of inspiration. So the column, like I said, is called Level Up Your Writing Life. And the first part of the column will focus on usually fiction, but it can also apply to memoir, craft topics such as effective dialogue, let's say. And then the second half, I flip it and I say, well, now what about you, dear writer? And so in that case, after giving specific tips on dialogue, I might, have that section be about, well, how do you talk to yourself as a writer? What are the voices in your head? What dialogue are you hearing? Or with setting, like here are tips on creating a great setting. Okay, now let's take a look at where you're writing. How might you improve that, or how might you find a place to write if you don't have one? So it's kind of giving that writing advice and then turning it on the writer to give the writer advice. So it's fun.
Very cool. Thanks for
Yeah.
telling us about that. Sharon, do you like to read books about writing?
I do. I have a whole bookshelf of books about writing. Um, of course, Bird by Bird is a classic that many writers cite for good reason, by Anne Lamott and Stephen King's On Writing. Those are the two classics that I think every writer should read. There's another book called Beginnings, Middles, and Ends, which is a very simple title, but it breaks down the notion of the premise behind that book, which I believe is by Monica Woods, is that every writer has trouble with one of those three areas. So you might feel really strong about your beginnings. You can come up with a really powerhouse ending, but what about that murky middle, which is where I struggle? So the book would give tips on that. Yeah, so I do. I love craft books.
Very cool.
Oh,
Wow, because there's a new one out that I just pause for 1 second and go grab it that I wanna tell
sure,
you?
absolutely.
I'm
There's
anxious
an
to see what she's
so
going to
there's a new
recommend.
one coming, and, we just got an early copy of it. It's called Permission. It's by Alyssa Altman,
Oh,
and she's a
okay.
very well-known memoirist, and so it focuses on that. I believe it says, "The New Memoirist and the Courage to Create." When
Oh,
I went
huh.
to a workshop with her when she was still working on it, and I believe at that time, the working title was On Permission,
Mm.
and it was
Mm,
talking about, creators more in general about how often artists are told as young people, you'll never be able to have a career as an artist, so, become a lawyer and then maybe you can do some writing on the side. So I think she's tackling that a little bit as well, but I just thought I
mm.
would tell you about it.
Yeah, thank you. I will definitely look that up. Actually, that brings to mind yet another pair of craft books. One is Intuitive Editor. It's about editing your own work, but the other one that um, is about sort of the emotional and spiritual journey of being a writer is called The Intuitive Author. And they're both by Tiffany Yates Martin, and they're just really great. They're newer books, but they belong as well on any writer's bookshelf. So
Nice.
Wonderful.
So talking about all this writing and getting back to Trouble Island, so your other book series is mystery, and you mentioned
yes,
at the beginning this one is suspense. What
right.
I mean, was it challenging for you to write a different type of novel?
Um, in some ways, so the arc for the character is compressed into one book for one thing. So so the growth that's going to happen for that character is going to be in that book rather than spread over 3, 4, 5, 30 books or however many books might be in a series. Um, and there's still a mystery to be solved, but it's also this suspense in that, there's this constant danger that the character is in. It's a little bit beyond solving a puzzle. It's, being immersed in that trouble, that atmosphere and locked down. So I loved playing with that because I love books like that. I love Daphne du Maurier. I love Ruth Ware. So, those are some of the inspirations in the sense of the feeling I wanted to create, not plot, but like feeling of um, atmospheric tension and what's just around the corner or what's right behind me. So it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Oh gosh, can't wait to dig into
Yes.
this.
So are we allowed to ask you what you're I know this is just coming out, but are we allowed to ask
Mhm.
you what you're gonna be working on next or what you're currently working on?
Yeah, of course, you're allowed to ask me anything. So what I'm currently working on is another standalone suspense. It would also be historical, different time period, and that's about all I'm going to say. So I'm hoping that I will get to keep writing and publishing um, standalone suspense for quite a few years to come because I've loved the mysteries I've written. I'm certainly open to writing more traditional mysteries again, but most of my writing life, I've wanted to write standalone suspense, and here I am doing the thing.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well
you.
earned. Thank you so much, Sharon. Very excited. Everybody go
Aw.
out and pre-order a copy of Trouble Island. It's coming out in just a couple weeks.
Yes, pre-order. People can visit my website for links to pre-order, and if you order before publication date, which is December 3rd, you can submit for a pre-order giveaway that my publisher Minotaur is doing. And the nice thing about this giveaway is everybody wins something. Everybody gets at least a really lovely custom made paper bookmark. And then there are other prizes as well. But people can go to my website and find that information.
Oh, very
Right.
cool.
We'll
And
put
we'll
that link down
down
below.
below. Yes.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Happy
Happy
reading.
reading.